Hello, I'm Mike Fontanopoulos, your academic coach for Springdale Public Schools. Today I want to chat with you about how to answer a short answer question in your advanced placement history class, AP World, AP US, AP Euro. If you get this skills set down, then you're going to be doing really well. And you can use this same skill set in all of those AP history classes. And this is also valuable for those students in pre-AP classes too, who are getting ready maybe in the 8th grade and the 9th grade to take those history classes later on. So let's go ahead and get started. First things first, we've got to understand what kind of words they're going to use in these questions. That word compare, we see that sometimes. You're going to see that here in just a little bit, actually. Provide a description or explanation of the similarities and or differences, and then evaluate, describe, explain, identify. Here, these are the two words that you're going to see quite a bit in an SAQ format, especially the word explain, and that is they might set up with an identify, and then later on the next question and the next question. There's usually 3 questions, obviously. You're wanting to try to get the 3 points, and they might start off easier with an identify, and then they'll get tougher and tougher with explain. And I might just get in the habit of always substituting the word identify for explain. And if you can keep that in your mind, then do so. Again, don't substitute explain for identify, but just put the word explain over that, and you should be fine. In case you start trying to wonder, am I answering this question well enough, etc. Just go ahead and think about trying to explain it, and I think you're going to be just fine. That is the because, the how, and the why, and give that idea of the relationship, process, pattern, position, all that kind of stuff there. You can read this and pause if you need to. Another good skill that I would probably get into the habit of is remembering the ACE, the SAQ, and that is a neat little acronym that is pretty explanatory once you get rolling. It's answer the question directly with your historical claim using those words from the prompt, and just give that flat out answer. And then next, cite the answer by giving an example of maybe a person or a place, a proper name, a proper a pronoun, a noun, proper name, something that's going to help give that answer some clarity and specificity, if you will. And then finally, explain it. Why? How? Your claim and evidence best addresses the intent of the question. So again, let's take a look here at the question and see what we can come up with. This was from 2018, and we see the engraving showing a historical encounter in 1765 with the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II granted the British East India Company, represented by Robert Clive, granted them the right to collect tax revenue from their own Mughal provinces of Bengal, Orissa, and then Bihar. And so basically what we're seeing here is that would, again, if you can imagine an American president giving a foreign nation like Spain the opportunity to come to America and tax American citizens. So there's obviously something going on here. If you remember back at the very beginning of, like say 1550, when the Portuguese are the first ones to get around the southern tip of Africa and make their way into India, they were met with derisive laughter. They were not taken seriously whatsoever because they didn't have anything to trade with. They didn't know what to trade with, what kind of trade items they needed to bring with them. And plus they weren't great traders to begin with. They were mapping out the worlds, and they had these newish inventions like the astrolabe, new sails, new boats that they derived from their interactions with the Middle East and all these other people that they met throughout the Crusades. And so again, this is a slow process. But by 1765, we've got the Emperor of India handing over sections of his world, extraterritoriality rights taking place right here. And again, you're going to see that word obviously, and you know that word as it happens to China, etc. later on. So again, now you can see the question why it's asking what it's asking. It says, identify one way in which the event depicted in the image reflects political changes. So there's political. And then explain one way in which the event depicted in the image reflects economic changes. So there's your political, economic. Notice how they're almost so darn similar. I'm just going to go ahead and explain. How about that? I'm not going to sit here and try to split hairs and do that kind of thing. I just want my points and I want to move on. And you're looking for just that 1 point. Each one of these, you just want 1 point. That's what you're dealing with. It's either 1 or 0. You either did it or you didn't, which is kind of a cold way to approach it. But that's why I like to use that word explain. Let's just explain it and move on. And that way I don't have anybody that I don't know, because that's what happens to your essay. Somebody's reading it that you don't know, or your little answer here. So again, that's why I do that. And then finally, this third one is a little bit, heavier. This is kind of lightweight. This is kind of medium weight. And this is kind of heavyweight when it comes to, lifting, so to speak, if you were thinking of these. But they all count as the same. So there you go. Explain one significant way in which the Great Britain's relationship with South Asia changed in the 19th century. So how does it change from this to something bigger by 1865? Excuse me, my pen there. By 1865, how does it even get more different, if you will, or similar? I guess compared with the relationship. So it changed, so it must be different. So there you go. Yeah. So let's get in here and look at a good answer, what that might look like. Identify one way in which the event depicted. And so this picture represents a political shift in the global balance of power. All that's just words from the prompt until you get to here. Because the Shah is no longer able to protect some Indian nationals or their economic interests. European companies are becoming more dominant and influential. Superior weaponry, superior boats gave European joint stock companies a clear advantage. And again, the interior of India would soon succumb to the same fate as the coast. And that's what happens if you remember your history here, that it's going to start on the coastlines first and going to get those British ports in there. And then as time moves on, it's just going to get worse and worse. And of course, the French were in there trying to do that as well, and others. And so that's why you have that 7 Years' War, what that's all about. Moving on. Explain one way in which the event depicted in the image reflects economic changes. Okay. The British East India, again, the image also demonstrates economic change in the 18th century as the British East India Company was able to force global leaders into economic agreements that were beneficial to the company. Greater access to India and other places like China would soon follow. So there you go. And then explain one significant way in which Great Britain's relationship with South Asia changed in the 19th century compared with the relationship depicted in the image. The British-South Asian relationship would further change 100 years later as the British would suppress the Sepoy Rebellion, totally dismantle the Indian textile industry, and further aid in the spread of Indian famine, poverty, and homelessness as Western mechanization would replace family-ran businesses and farms. So again, there's your 1, there's your 1, there's your 1. You're getting a 3 because you're explaining and you're giving the why and the how and all that behind it. And you can kind of see here, this whole question is getting at kind of like, how did the British and India interact from about 1450 till about 1850. And you know good and well that the Indians and the South Asians, all those different peoples throughout the Indian Ocean ruled trade. They ruled trade. And then by 1750, 1800, they slowly lose it. They lose out over and over and over until all these Western powers are involved in the Indian Ocean and in the Pacific, and because of that superior weaponry that they have, that for whatever reason that China and India didn't invest in for such a long time. So again, there's that dynamic and that change, and that's what that question is getting at. So there you go. Good luck to you in all the things that you do in AP World History, AP US History, and AP European History. And here's a good way to answer your short answer questions in the future.